Oh God, I can't sleep. Then it's time for you to come into the Insomnia Hour. Welcome to the Insomnia Hour. I am Sasha George, your sensual voice on the airway. This show is sponsored by Silas and More Media. Really appreciate their support and continual support for other shows to come. Let me introduce you to the show and myself. The show is the Insomnia Hour. It's about random topics, not so much insomnia. But of course, I'm going to throw it here and there. Like today, the first show is about authors and their insomnia about getting their work out there. And I do have a co-host that will be standing by. About myself, I am a producer, author, 30 books, variety for adult and children. You can find it at sashageorge.com. All that information. I'll keep you well fed, I promise. Now we're on to why you're here, to learn about something of specific conversation. So the first person that I'm going to have on this show as a co-host is Daniel Caine, and here is that recorded show. You can run, but you can't hide, for the Insomnia Hour talk show is just about to arrive. There are many different types of insomnias. There are fears of spiders, fear of heights, fear of spaces, but this specific one relates to both him and I as authors or writers, however you want to define yourself. And that's an insomnia of trying to become a author and writer. And I think we both can say we understand this.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, you're on your second book, and you're working on your third book, and you also did a co-author book with myself. And I think you came a long way from your very first.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think you're more confident now?
Yeah. It, initially, it was a struggle. There was just the standard, typical, am I going to make it? Is this book going to be what I want it to be? Am I going to gain the status that I want as an author? There's all those worries, those fears, those setbacks, really. And they just turned out to be hurdles in the road that I overcame. And I do feel accomplished. I have gotten a lot done the past couple of years. And I've got a pretty set in stone pace for myself, working as an author, it's going along good. I'm happy with how things are going in my authorship.
Yeah, and I think you identified a little bit of many common fears that people have faced. I know a lot of people over my time as an author, because I'm releasing my 30th book here soon. A lot of people start off feeling like they lack the talent. They love the passion, but they lack the talent is their fear. And even though you have people around you who sit there and tell you, yes, you're talented, yes, you can, but it just eats at you. It's like, what is too much to push you to that edge to creatively do that? I mean, did you ever feel that way?
I did, very much so. And it took the realization of I can have 1,000 people believing in me, but until I believe in myself, you never overcome those fears and those worries until you realize that you have to believe in yourself.
And that also falls into the secondary category of looking like a fool, and nobody wants to look like a fool.
Yes, that's very true. And that was one of my worries too. I went back and forth many times with is this good? Is this really going to captivate and allure my readers, or do I just look stupid writing this? Is this not really what people say it is?
Is the details not there? Yeah, it's like, are the details not there? How am I going to go about my descriptions? Is it too much? Is it just too light? It's like a hot and cold situation.
Yes.
I get that. You know, and a lot of people fear that, you know, they don't say enough. You know, they don't feel like what they're saying is going to be an interest, even though it is.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people say their lives are such an interesting topic, but then when they go to write down about the life situation, should I say this? Should I mention this person? You know what I mean? But, I mean, that all comes in experience about what you want to write with. It's definitely a personal growth.
Yeah. Eventually it just, the more and more you do it, the more in swing you get with it. It begins to come naturally.
Oh, yeah. I felt that, too. You know, I felt that through very much in the beginning. But my inspiration was through death experience, being a blood clot victim. I'm like, hey, wait, I didn't do anything, you know, in my life. So I needed to say something before. With you, we're inspired to finally open up in other reasons.
Yes. To get on a little bit of a personal level here, you know, you stated for yourself it was death, and being a blood clot victim for myself, death as well, but in a different perspective of I've seen it. I've been the victim of it in the sense that I have lost loved ones through death, and that's what has sparked and motivated me. That's what's fueled my passion to write. There's a lot of pain and darkness in my past, you know, to be able to write things, build scenarios around things that I've been through myself. It's very, very therapeutic. And
I was going to say, it was very therapeutic.
Right.
And you need that therapy.
It's a good coping mechanism.
But at the same time, there is also that insomnia. Your therapy is very personable. It's like almost an invasion to your mind, too.
Yes.
It's just, I don't want to scare people about my demons that I'm facing, but those demons have derived from just many authors, painters, musicians, and have inspired the world to change it, to identify it, to be built off it. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's face it, any artist, be it an author, like you said, a painter, a musician, you know, any form of artist, they have, to an extent, some form of pain or something that they're fighting emotionally, mentally. Look at Mozart, look at Beethoven, Picasso. You know, they have very troubled histories, a lot of pain to them, and they bled that out into their work, and that's what made it so emotional and so powerful.
But with them, they did not face rejection as social media today. Their rejection was in a total different insomnia than we have today. Today we have, who are we going to place our hard work in whose hand? Who's going to publish us and go further? Where with them, they had the rejection of church, rejection of social status. And it's amazing the difference of then and today's insomnia, you know?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Right. And then, you know, and to go off that, the other thing is once you get started as a writer, you know, I think a lot of people come to this conclusion of, I've started, but when do I stop?
Right.
And I always tell people that if you feel there is no true ending, make a cliffhanger and do a second book.
Yeah.
I mean, did you feel that with your book?
Yeah. I was just going to bring that up. That's exactly what I've done with the Markov Rendezvous. It's an entire series. There's many books that are going into this series, and many cliffhangers to be had per book. That, in all honesty, each cliffhanger, the way that I've left it, that throughout the entire book, it's drawn readers in. They want to know what further is going to happen, what more is Vladimir Markov going to endure, what more are the other main characters going to see, what more trials are going to happen. And then they get to the end of the book, they come to this cliffhanger that, in all honesty, I do believe pisses some of my readers off because they're like, what? You left the book there?
I know. I have the same.
Right. They can't wait for the release of the next book.
Yeah, and you've read my House of Blood book series, so you already know my cliffhangers in there. Yeah.
Yes, I do. And Sasha, 3 of your books so far have made me throw the books across the room and say, I can't believe she did that.
Tit for tat, tit for tat. You do it to me, yes. I do it to you.
Yes.
I think both of us, because we've had a journey together, me inspiring you to live up to your standards. When I met you, you were a bundle of anxieties. Somebody needs a life support when they're trying to accomplish authorship. And I think I was definitely that standard for you to keep going, keep doing what you need to do. You need to focus. Did you feel that you would ever have that kind of potential? Regardless of how I said it to you, you still didn't feel like you had that great potential?
I did not. I was very doubtful towards myself, and as stated before, I did not believe in myself. Even though you believed in me and you gave me great inspiration and great motivation, there was still that little voice in the back of my head that said, you're not good enough to do this. Even though you have, as I previously stated, you could have 1,000 different voices that are telling you, oh, you got this, you're so good, you're the master of this is excellent. It's your own voice that holds you back.
I agree.
So, right, like I said, even though you believed in me and you were a great inspiration and motivation, and still to this day are, I still have those doubts about myself. Not to the near extent of what they used to be, because as previously stated, I have come a long way. I have accomplished much.
But I think it became more of a foundation, a stability that you needed when you saw that your very first book that was accomplished for people to pick up. And I have seen your readers, and they're like, oh, when's the next book coming out? And they cling to you. And so I think that's when you say you come a long way, I think that helps encourage your writing and your motivation.
When I get actual physical feedback that I can see, oh, well, I guess I didn't do as bad as I was criticizing myself to have done. It's a reality of, oh, well, I did good after all.
Right. And for myself, when I write, I'm consistent. I don't have an exhaustion period. I don't have writer's block. And people are like, how can you keep going? How can you keep doing this? And I think it's different than somebody else who is an author or writer, just like you. Life throws us curveballs. So you could be affected from being sick, and that could just put you in a moment of, I'll do it later. And it's kind of like exercising. You do it, and then you get off the bike for a few minutes to recover, and then it's hard to get back on that motivation. That puts a hindrance, and that's an insomnia for some people, I've noticed. When are you selling yourself out by procrastinating? Yeah, there is procrastinating, but there's also other things that are affecting you, and you shouldn't worry about those things. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I agree completely.
It's like I'd rather you write when you feel it, but not be like a copy machine.
Yes.
Because people can sense that.
Especially when you feel it, because if you try to force yourself to do it, it's not natural. It doesn't come out natural, and your readers can sense that. They can feel that, and they lose the connection that they had with your book if you're trying to force yourself.
I agree with you. And that's just like writing music or doing artwork.
Right.
Something you want people to say, God, I felt that. Oh, felt when that shot went through the person's body and the woman's running up to him and crying because she's losing somebody she loves. You want people to cry.
Right.
And it's hard. It's like, how do you find emotions without coming off so robotic? And that's just something you have to, even like an actor, you have to focus on something in your past to make it articulate in your writing. once you identify something of your past to relate to your character, then you can find that passion you need. But, of course, once you get to writing, you're wondering what field of writing do you want to go to? You know?
Yes, and that can be a struggle within itself, too.
Right?
Trying to identify, okay, am I a crime writer? Am I a supernatural writer? Am I even a fictional writer, or should I do nonfiction? That half the battle is trying to figure out what you should even write about.
A lot of people choose a specific genre.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, is I cannot conform to one genre. I have to experience them all.
Right.
And for you, I mean, you are definitely an empowerment in the Russian mafia, definitely crime book. I love the way your mind works. I mean, I can say over repeatedly what inspired me for fantasy books, my vampire books, the espionage books, my poetry books, sci-fi. When did you find you were a crime writer?
Honestly, having worked in law enforcement and being so close to it, I guess it was more so of a curiosity than anything. Obviously, I would never go out and do these things that I write about in the
I don't think anybody would.
No. It's a curiosity. It was, well, I've lived on this side of the fence. What's it like on the other side?
Right.
So I have put in a personal understanding as working in law enforcement, to the extent of, well, you're running from the law. What did you do that's making you run from the law? I have that perspective, but I guess I wanted to understand the other perspective of, I'm running from the law, and this is what I did to make me run from the law.
However,
really,
I get that part, but your law is in a whole other country.
Yes.
You're thinking not, I mean, yes, you do live in America, but your book's based in Russia, which is a whole different culture. And and you write it so well. It's like your entire embodiment was born there. So
Thank you. Most of it, yes, did come naturally, and just from some just self-knowledge that I know of Russia. But it also did take a lot of countless hours of research, knowing the culture and knowing the customs and knowing their law and their judicial system over there. Because as we stated before, no one wants to sound like a fool, so I wasn't just going to make things up as I went. I actually
Are you sure you don't want to?
No, I really, really don't. It's not a pretty thing when I look like a fool.
Right. You can't be afraid of researching. And if you feel that the topic that you're trying to write about is not going to be critically acclaimed to the right exact theory as somebody might, you know what I mean, nitpickers.
Right. Oh, trust me, there was plenty of fear of doing the research where I was sitting at the computer and I'm like, is this going to make the FBI knock on my door today?
Right. And I think if you claim that, you make a disclaimer and say a lot of the depiction of this book is fictitious.
Right.
It may not, it's been altered enough to make you feel comfortable. Even though it's like logical, I think with my Realm book, which is a fantasy and monarchy type book, dragons and things like that, they always depict the English monarchy. And I'm like, but this is a whole other world. How does this monarchy, conform to that one? It's different laws, different theories. Same concept of royalty. I know those are fears that people face, and you just have to shrug and say, well, if you don't like it, don't read it. People are always going to use you as a stepping stone to voice their opinion.
Exactly.
And those are one of those fears you have to let go. Make your product, feel comfortable about your product, and let it go.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you did too, and I'm so proud of you for that. But from that point is so iconic. I think the most problematic fear that people have writing a book is time and financial concerns. How do you make time? Time is not a problem. It really isn't. I find it's not a problem. It's just managing. If you only have a half hour, write for a half hour, even if it's a paragraph. Even if it's a sentence, you apply it yourself. That's
another struggle that I went through, and honestly sometimes even go through to this day, is, how long should I write for? And not only that, but am I going to get done what I wanted to get done in that amount of time? I personally struggle with writer's block quite frequently, and there's been times where I'll go to sit down from anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, and I'll get done maybe 3 sentences. Because sometimes I just get those mental blocks. One thing that I've learned over my years of writing is the best thing to do when you have writer's block is to write. Even if it's just something so stupid as to, I really hate writer's block, I can't write when I can't think, at least you're still making your mind think. And you can put down your anger and your frustration and your hatefulness towards the fact that you can't write. Because it's still writing. Even though you may not be writing what you want to be writing, you're still writing.
I think for me, because, I have an autistic child, which demands a very allotted amount of time. So I have to manage through his struggles, not being able to communicate. But for me, I always start off with writing 1 through 19, and that believes in my chapters. So I'll write, this is chapter 1, this is what I want to inspire in this chapter. Chapter 2, that's what I want to inspire it. So I make an outline of theory. It's not sound. Then I put that paper aside. Then I write character sheets. Anybody who wants to really make characters sound in their books, write character sheets. Because I know during the time when I'm writing my books, I'll be like, was my character's hair purple or black? I can't remember.
I have the exact same problem. And your advice on making those character sheets was actually one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten in my life. Because I went through the exact same thing with writing my first 2 Markov books. It was, okay, well, where did this situation happen? Where was this location at? What did this character look like? And my first book, I had to go back many times to recall those things, those factors. And then come my second book is when you told me, do a character sheet. And I was like, well, why didn't I think of that in the first place?
I think not everybody understands that. If you do not grow up as a role player, like an online writing or forum-based writing, turn-based, and I'll explain this to our listeners. When you online role play with somebody, they post a starter. I would read their starter and reply to their in character. So we take turns learning that concept. But before you even do a writing with somebody, you have to do a profile of your character.
Yes.
And I think that's a
the
good
whole
exercise.
backstory of that character, the building up of that character.
Like what is their weakness? Where did they live? What's their hair color, their size? Who were their parents? And you don't even have to use all these descriptions, but at least it's detailed enough to later on when you reread it and, editing, you're like, you know what, I want to add this person. I want to add a little bit about their family. What did I write about their family in this profiling? You know what I mean? And I think that helps save your time when you I never tell people just to sit down and write. I don't suggest that because that's like sitting down in front of a intense workout And they're like, okay, this really skinny person's like, hey, we're going to do like 75 sit-ups. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
No.
Not advised. Not advised.
Right. And I think a lot of it, from that point is everything else, if you're during your day, you want to look up your location, you don't have to sit in front of your computer. You don't have to pen and paper. You have your cell phone. You can email yourself while you're at lunch and say, oh, I want to write about, the Philippines, or, oh, today, my character in chapter 7 is going to go to an exotic place. So by that time, you have a nice pile on side of you to go through and organize it. Then you can write. Then it's comfortable. You have everything researched, and always have a nice fresh pot of coffee.
Yes, always.
Always.
If you're not a big coffee drinker, then crack open a Rockstar energy drink. Those are handy too.
And I don't normally promote this, but for some people, I do condone it. Have your cigarette. Please have your cigarette.
Yes.
So the rest of the world does not feel your pain.
Yes, Sasha, you know me very well. I am a cigarette smoker and half a smoke like a chimney. But that's my, it helps me think.
For me, I chew gum, and then everybody else in my house is like, I can't stand the snapping. Stop the snapping. But overall, I think those are really the primary fears. There's actually two more. One we didn't really go over is the financial concern. And there's a lot of directions you can go. You can do independent, where you have more control. There's great part about being an independent writer. However, you have to be in control of your advertisement, word of mouth, where you want to go. And then the financial concerns for your authorship, you know what I mean, through a publisher.
Yes.
And there's no better place to look all this up than Google. It is the best tool in the world, because people
for authors it is, yes. If you have a cold or something, or you don't feel good, I don't suggest going to Dr. Google, because that's the best way to convince yourself that you're dying. But for authors, yes, it's a good tool.
Yeah, because a lot of people have asked me, I get like 3,000 emails a day. People who are proud of the books or in the inspiration. But majority of the questions is, can you read my book? Can you direct me to a publisher? I'm going to say this. Finding what you need is like going to buy a car. You have to find the right place where you feel. Do you want a hardcover? Do you want a soft cover? Are you looking for an audio, or do you want your book in a form of script to be produced by movies? There are many different places on the internet that can help you. And I always tell people, don't fear your writing. And if I read your writing, then it becomes my book. Because then I'm already trying to organize it, and I can't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you have to have confidence that what you're doing is a good outline. The fact that you just started to do a paragraph or something, that is the best insomnia, fear, anxiety breaker ever, I think.
Yes, I agree with you.
But other than that, I think we've covered really everything that makes these stumbling blocks a success.
Yes.
There's no failure. The only failure is not trying. If you try, you've broken that first anxiety,
and that's always the first step, is putting the first foot forward.
I definitely agree with you on that. Is there anything on your journey that you feel you can say to other people?
If you have the heart to do it, just do it. And that's not just with writing, that's with anything in life. If you want to be an author, if you want to be a musician, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a policeman, you want to be a veterinarian, just do it. Put your mind to it, and more importantly, put your heart to it. Because the moment that you believe in yourself, even if you've got those 1,000 other people believing in you, the moment that you believe in yourself, that's when you can really accomplish it.
I agree. And I think for me, my sentiments for everybody is once you finish your first book, do not think that it is an instant success. It takes a long time for people to notice you. If you're doing an independent book, it takes a while for people, because you're one little fish in a big bowl of many other writers.
Yes.
So if you get 3, 50, 10 sales, take that as a compliment and continue on. Because the more you get your name in the system, the more people are going to notice you. And you have to be non-fearing of that. And I think that's the only real harboring thought people feel is building that confidence to advertise themselves. And you can't fear that. You can't.
Right.
But if you have anybody you want to invest in, more power to you.
Right. True.
So I thank you so much for being on here, opening up about this. I don't ever want anybody to feel rejected about their own progress. And I felt this was a good topic. And I appreciate what you offered to others, overcoming what you had to face.
Yeah. Yeah, no matter what you do in life, it's going to be a struggle. There are going to be struggles and hurdles. But as I encouraged before, do it. Take the risk. Face your fears and do it.
Hopefully you gathered some great perspective. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Insomnia Hour. I am Sasha George, your sultry voice on the airwaves. Thanks again to the sponsor, Silas and More Media, and look forward to next week.